Welcome, everybody, to the next episode of Inclusion Starts Now, the podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about how to get involved with your school board. After this most recent election and hearing again all of these extreme choices that the new president is going to be doing towards the education system, it has made me really start to rethink my involvement with bigger things than bigger things. Said it beautifully. Could have said it better myself. So I'm going to talk about that. But before we get to that, let's give a special thanks to my sponsor, Dry Shampoo. Without Dry Shampoo, I would look so much more greasy because my hair is super thin and fine. And if I didn't have shampoo and sometimes the occasional baby powder, I would look like I never shower because literally after one day of not washing my hair, it gets really greasy. So thank you, dry shampoo slash baby shower, nope, baby powder for being here. Um, there's no discount for that. So don't use any code because you're not going to be getting a discount on dry shampoo, but huge fan. Okay, so let's talk about it. So I'm really just going to talk about this the way that it kind of happened in my head, and I'm going to just be super honest about what I've experienced so far since starting this process. So for some reason, this election was harder for me when the candidate I did not want to win won. Um, and because someone asked me, they were like, "Well, how did you feel in 2016?" And my response then was like, I don't know. How much does the president really do? Like, they say they're going to do all these things, but like things take forever to change. It has to go through like all the branches of government. Like, I didn't think that my personal life would be like, I don't think I would have noticed a difference. Like in 2016, I was able to look at it and be like, I don't think my life's going to change very much. Like, it doesn't really matter who's president. Um, and then it was Biden, and now we're back to Trump. And for some reason this time, it could be because I have kids. I really don't know what has made the shift so different this time. Um, and I still kind of feel the same, but it's more that I'm like, why am I okay with this? Like, just because I'm not like my whole platform is that like I'm an advocate and I'm an ally with people, like not just because because I want to be. I'm not quite sure how to um but I guess it just feels like there's just the I maybe I've gotten more invested in hearing more stories, and now I have kids of my own, and recognizing my own like identity that is like being threatened. uh I'm not quite sure what it is, but this year, and maybe I was too busy. 2016, I was like in a new relationship. I was like in grad school, first year teaching, not first year teaching, couple years into teaching. Um, but my life was just in a really different place. Anyways, that's enough background of that. So this year, I was like, okay, I want to. Oh, you know what? I forgot to talk about Betsy DeVos. So, 2016, after Trump was elected, I remember everyone freaking out that Betsy DeVos was going to be the head of the Department of Education. And everyone was like, she's for private schools. She's not a good, everyone, there was I would say a lot of fear mongering. Um, because after this happened, I was like, I don't know who the Department of Education was before. Like, never even crossed my mind. Didn't even realize we had a Department of Education until Trump chose somebody that apparently my circle didn't want. Um, and I remember I made an Instagram post about it, and I was like, and then I was like, I can tell you as a teacher that the education system's not great. That, money is tight. There's not a lot of staff. There's not enough support. Accommodations seem so hard to get. And, maybe we do need a drastic change. Maybe Betsy, oh my gosh. Betty DeVos. Betty, how did I just forget her name? Betsy DeVos? DeVos? Oh my gosh, Kayla. Anyways, I was like, you know what? Maybe she's going to come in with this new perspective and maybe it's going to be great. I have no idea. But, I was a teacher. I'm like, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere, whatever. And then I moved, still taught. And then I was like, you know what? Teaching it for me. So I left. But I stayed in the education system in just different ways. And then COVID and we're switching off all these presidents and then we're back to Trump. And he, said that he is eliminating the Department of Education. And again, I kind of feel like this fear mongering came out that people were like, so what's going to happen? Like, what's going to happen to IDEA? What's going to happen to Title I schools? Like, what there's a lot of questions and unanswered questions that have now come up that I hope Trump will eventually explain or talk about. Um, and I honestly I don't even know how I feel about this because again, I can see myself reflecting on how I felt in 2016 when Betsy DeVos was the new Department of Education head, whatever. So again, I'm kind of like, okay, well. Do we really think like are there going to be any states that are just going to be like cut all the funding for the students with disabilities? Like I would find that really hard to believe, but obviously I don't know the future. Um, and I also want to have this as an open discussion. I mean, I know you're listening to this and obviously you can't respond and I can't hear you because I did this like 2 weeks ago. But I think having these conversations are really helpful. And the next week the episode that's coming out is with Tim Vallejos and we're gonna talk more in depth about the Department of Education and what we think the future is gonna look like. So I'm not really going to talk about that now, other than I don't want to be afraid of something where I don't actually know what's going to happen. It's kind of like a really great tool that I use with my anxiety is I don't always like flying in planes and the fake news that will start going on in my head of like, what's happening with the pilots or what's happening on the plane. Um, to then remind myself to like ground myself of like, okay, put your feet on the floor. Like I'm still going to be a parent. I'm still going to be a teacher. I'm still going to be an educator. I'm still going to help my community and I'm going to help people however I can. And I know that that is going to be the path that I will forever be taking. So after Trump won this time around, I was like, you know what? I'm done only voting. Like I vote, I make calls to like my district person when there's like a big vote happening so they know what I want them to vote as. And I used to go to protests, not so much since having kids in COVID, because, that's like a whole nother thing. Um, but, sign petitions. If I feel very strongly about something, I definitely make sure my voice is heard about it. But I feel like that's kind of the bare minimum. And that was always my bare minimum. So I kept feeling like that I was like, well, I I vote, I do what I have to do, like as a citizen. But then I started thinking about it after this last time, and I was just like, screw that. Like, why am I only doing that? Why don't I have these conversations with more people? As I said a few podcast episodes before, I grew up with a Republican parent and a Democrat parent. Like, I heard both sides, and even throughout me growing up, like some people have switched sides. And it's interesting to hear why. And I know a lot of people have taken the stance of like, you voted for someone who's against me and I don't want to talk to you. Um, and you have to do whatever you can to protect your boundaries, to protect your sanity. Um, but for me personally, I want to figure out why people voted differently. And because I do feel like people I know who did vote for Trump, they don't think that. Like they didn't vote for Trump thinking that they were going to like that he just like hates gay people or like and I hope that doesn't sound too extreme, and I'm sure there are people out there who are going to disagree, and I'm not even quite sure if I agree, like I'm not saying I even agree with their perspective, but I'm saying that there are people that I know who voted for Trump because he was the Republican candidate, because of like his policies or his taxes or whatever. And I know people know that. Um, and I think that is what's really important when we go into having these conversations is that like people are coming from these like values that are so embedded into them that we need to talk to them to understand where they're coming from and like have a good conversation because like people can change their minds, but they're not going to change their minds if you shut them off from all of the amazing information that you have. Um, and being open to learn. I mean, I did that in one of my posts. Someone commented that they felt like Trump was not against the LGBTQ community, people of color or women. And I was like, that's great. Like, please send me some policies or, laws or whatever. Please show me where you feel like he's supporting those groups because I would love to learn because I don't get a lot of information on Trump. My computer knows who I am, and it does give me liberal media. I'm very aware of the biased media that I get. Um, but I still was not able to get an answer. So if anybody has an answer, I'm happy to take it. Anyways, I feel like these conversations are important to have, and I want to start having them more on my like social media platforms, and in person. And so, wow, that was long-winded to get to the school board conversation that I said I was going to get to. Um, so it made me consider like running for my school board, getting involved with my school board. And I want to tell you all the facts that people have given me. I had a friend send me, there's a California link that will like help you be on your school board. Um, and I'll put it in the show notes for you. It is for California, but if you like search around, you might find like some good techniques. I'm pretty sure you have to pay for it, and I can't pay for anything else right now, so I did not pay for it. But if you do, let me know how it goes. Um, but what I did do is I reached out, I went and Googled my district, my school district, and school board. And it brought me to emails where I can connect with people. It gave me information about the school board meetings. And so I emailed them. They emailed me back within a couple days. And I was going to try really hard to go to this inclusion committee meeting that I was like, so I saw it the day after you were supposed to RSVP. So I saw the flyer. Oh, yeah. I also joined a Facebook group for people interested in my school district's school board, like activities, conversations, etc. So I got involved with the Facebook group, missed the RSVP for that inclusion committee, which I'm super bummed about, but whatever. I'm sure there will be other things that I can jump in on. Um, and then I emailed the school board administrative assistant. And so they connected me to someone on the school board, and then that person has connected me to a committee member, and this committee member, literally just now, I responded to her and she asked me, how do I want to be involved? And I was like, I don't really know. And I'm being just so genuinely honest with everybody, because I don't really know what it's like to be on a school board. I've never even been to a school board meeting. I've never been to a PTA meeting. So I was like, yeah, I'm ready for this to be something I focus on, like moving forward. And so I told her about my passion for inclusive practices and how I think it's so important to educate people on like disability representation and accommodations and how this can benefit everybody in the classroom and make stronger teachers. And I talked about how I just want to be involved and like learn more because it doesn't really make sense for me to like run to be a board member when like I've never even attended a board meeting in person. Um, so I did join virtually because when I made this decision, the meeting was like the following week, and I already had plans like up until the time of the meeting. So I joined the meeting virtually. It was about 2 hours, and it was a really fun meeting. And I wish I could have been there in person to meet more people. Especially after the board member emailed me back saying, like, next time you come in person, like, I'd love to meet you. Like, it was just so nice that people were already so welcoming of like, yes, let's get involved. Let's figure out what we want to do. Let's work together. And I think also so far the board, I mean, again, one meeting, the board did such a good job of like turning people's complaints into solutions or into like an action plan. Um, and I know this is like an ongoing, and I think this is like kind of a silly thing for people to say when they're like, no one even knows who's on our board. And it's like, I don't know. And so one of the board members responded, well, like later when it was their time to speak, they were saying how they went to different schools. They made it a priority that like during their lunch, I think a couple times a week, they would go to different schools and like sit at recess and talk to kids, sit at lunch and meet kids at the lunch table. And kids would be like, "Who are you?" And they're like, "Oh, I'm on your school board. Like I help figure out what we're gonna do in your schools to make it like a better place for you." Like, and then like kind of talk to them. Um, and there's always gonna be people who are gonna say that people aren't doing enough. And to those people, I say, go do something about it then and stop asking other people to do it. But I thought the five people on my school board were really good at talking about what they're doing, how they are trying to get involved, and how they hear a complaint and they don't get defensive. Instead, they were like, okay, we hear you, and like, this is what we're going to do, which I feel like is something I know I need to work on. I know on social media, if someone says something, I can get mad and walk away and then come back and be like, okay, like, I can now hear you and like respond cordially, cordially. Um, and so, yeah. So anyways, that is probably something I'm going to have to work on. The next board meeting, I already have plans, which I'm so bummed about. So I'm not able to attend again live, but I'm really hoping January I'll be able to, um, and then start meeting the people and start getting involved in committees. That's what my mother-in-law, who has been in the education field, I think she was in there for like 30 or 40 years as a teacher, um, probably closer to 40. If not longer, she was a teacher for a very long time and very invested. She was very involved with boards and committees and was very passionate about making sure kids were getting um, a good schooling experience. And so she was the first person to call me and was like, how are you going to get involved? Like, you should go into committees. You need to start like talking to people and doing it. And I was just like, okay, so if you have any interest in joining a school board or trying to get more invested in some political way, just start telling people because people were like I didn't really know I was going to tell people, but then how many people responded positively back towards me was so much more encouraging. And I was like, you know what? Yes, we're doing this, we're going. And so we're gonna keep going and we're gonna see where it's gonna go from here. I'm really excited. It feels crazy to be starting something in November when like the next 2 months are just like absolutely wild for me. Um, but here we are. And I have not been very good at doing my Mystic Cats tarot card reading at the end of all my podcasts, but I feel like today I really want one. I really want to do one to make sure I don't know. I want to focus on like this school board and getting involved and like people always say like I have too much on my plate but that's like how I live. Like I love being busy. Doing these projects just brings me so much joy. If this was like stressful and hard and I didn't like it, I wouldn't be doing it. I felt like that was a good cut. I was shuffling while I was talking. Okay. Okay, we got upside down, which I don't feel like is always a good thing. So we got four of cups. This is a super cute little card. We have three little froggies. So it was upside down. motivation, growth. Wow. Okay. Thinking, thinking, thinking. Don't get so lost in thought that you ignore the cups in front of you. We need to consider many things before making any big moves. It may seem like there's no right way to move forward, but now is the time to turn to yourself and reflect on your emotions to find the answer. Wow. This is like, don't get so lost in thought that you ignore the cups in front of you. So I just had a great conversation with my mom today. Hi, Mom, if you're listening. She's probably one of my like most devoted listeners. Um, and we were talking about how my patience has kind of gotten short. Like if I get really short with people, especially people that I'm close to. Uh, and it's very much like and I know when I do, and it's usually because I'm focusing on the kids and they're young, as I've said many, many a time. And then people will start asking me questions or asking me to do something for them. And then I get really annoyed because I'm, usually trying to do something for myself. And as a mom of young children, you kind of have to like schedule time for yourself. And when you're trying to run a small business and you're so invested in this new podcast you're doing, and then you want to run for a school board, you start thinking like it is overwhelming. And so when people ask me questions that I feel like they could have answered themselves, or a question that's like just like not the right time to ask me, I do get really short. And I definitely get shortest on my mom and my dad and my partner. Um, and today I seriously was talking to my mom. I'm also listening to this book about boundaries, which I'm going to tell you what it's called. It's called The Book of Boundaries, and it's by Melissa Urban. She is the founder of the Whole 30, and it's a great book. And I love Boundaries book. I've already read Nedra Tawwab's, I think that's her last name, Glover, Nedra Glover Tawwab, I think, Set Boundaries, Find Peace. I loved her book. Um, and I don't know if it's just like rereading another book about boundaries. I mean, I love books about human behavior. Because I feel like it's just so good as people that we understand why other people are peopling. Um, so this boundaries book has really got me reflecting on relationships that are just like draining to me that I just need to kind of like take a step back from. Um, and then again, reminding me that like I don't have to work all day. And if I sit there and I'm trying to do work while my kids are like wanting to play with me, it's stressing me out. They're not having a good time. And then if my partner were to come in and ask me a question, I'm gonna like take it out on him, which is not fair to anybody in this situation. So I definitely, and I do have like two pretty big things happening, finishing in the next 2 months that I'm very excited to have off of my plate so I could put school board on there. Um, so yeah, wow, that was a really good tarot card for today. That was like real spot on. Um, Anyways, thank you so much for everybody who was here today. If you have any other questions about trying to get involved with your school board, I'm happy to try to talk about it. Um, Again, I just want to thank Dry Shampoo for being a solid and being there for forever. And I will never stop using you. And that is it. So get out there and do what you need to do to feel like you are making a difference because I know that you can. Inclusion starts with you, and I just want to help. Have a good day.